Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, when you drink something, you gotta drink with your pinky up, bro, so you could be fancy. Anyways, man. So, my Astros, they did lose that first game, man. But you know what? It was close. So, we got the next game tonight at 7 o'clock, man. But, so what I did go ahead and do was I went back and I tried to find any games during this Fischer Random World Championship that I haven't covered yet. So I do have, believe it's round 3. Yes. It is the round 3 game between Wesley and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And this is actually a really nice, interesting game, man. It's got, some imbalances in it, so I'll get to that later on. But, man, for all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking magkaibigan, magandang umaga to you. It is super duper morning. I don't think anybody's up yet. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning over there, so it's like sweet dreams, Anybody who is coming from Uzbekistan, I will say salam, and I will say rahmat. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, but if you guys are ready to go, son, let's take a look, see what we got for this game. So we got the move B4, we got knight to F6, and we got G3. So we kind of have like a Polish Banco type situation going. You guys know that, this is the Polish, and this is a Banco type setup when you just kind of fee and Keto to this side. It can also be like a King's Indian attack type situation, just kind of, depending on how you go. So we do see the move D5. We got bishop to B2. This is actually super common, just to kind of push the pawn forward and bring the bishop up. Then you kind of have this little battery going on. And we do see the move castles by black. Now, as you guys are familiar probably by now, these two spaces are now clear for you to be able to castle. And that is what you need to have in this situation. And then, of course, the pieces just end up on their normal castling squares. So that's why you just see, the situation like that. So, of course, as you guys know, you grab the king first, put it over, and you can castle. You never want to grab your rook first and try to castle because somebody can claim that rook move is a legal move. Always grab king first. Anyways, going to the move D3 for white, we got the move A5. Giving the queen a little bit of room to come out and see what's cracking. We do see the move B5. We got A4, knight goes to A3. And even though this is not what we see in the game, the same thing I just told you guys about castling king side, if you were to castle queen side in a regular game, the rook would actually end up on this square and the king would end up on this square. So you actually can, just to show you guys an example, you actually can't, well, of course, it's black's turn. So, let's say this happens right here. You can castle like this. Like I said, this is not what we see in the game. But you guys see a perfect illustration visually of castling king side, castling queen side in these positions here. So, hopefully that answers some people's questions. Because like I said, castling is one of the most complicated things, I think, as far as chess 960 goes. Because it is a lot more complicated than you would normally think. At least for me. I don't know if it is for you guys, but I know it took me forever to get the castling thing down. So we do see the move bishop goes to C3 in this position. Instead, we got the move G6. Bishop goes to G2. We got the move D4. And, this is kind of clamping down. Black actually has a nice position here. They're kind of clamping down on white. Bishop has to go. It doesn't have to go to D2, but that's one of the best moves to go. But we do kind of have this little clamp down. White is not crazy developed. Of course, black isn't either. But, black definitely has a nice control of the position that we have here. And then we do see the really nice move E5. So we got this pawn in your throat, and this pawn is backing it up, saying, bro, I got your back, homie. We do see the move E4. We're really trying to breathe. We're trying to get some extra room. So we do take pawn takes E3 en passant, and then we do have F taking E3, bishop going to G4. We're kind of attacking this rook a little bit. If we can force this rook to move, then black cannot castle queen side. As you guys know, when you do castle, the king and the rook that you're using to castle, they both cannot have a move before. That messes you up. So we do see knight going to E2 covering. White is just a little bit tied down. You would kind of like, because now you're clear on this side, you kind of like to castle, but this knight is kind of an issue, man. So we have gotten into a situation where black, they definitely have a few moves. To name off these few moves, you actually have queen to A7 is one of the moves, just adding a lot of pressure onto this pawn here, and just not really changing a whole lot. Like I said, white cannot castle because this knight would be hanging. You also have knight B to D7 because you kind of have a little bit of problems on this diagonal. After maybe the bishop would come here if you try to break the position open with the move E4. So you kind of have to prepare it a little bit. We do not actually see that. After the move knight goes to E2, we actually see the immediate E4, which is actually a blunder. this gives white a very, very great position. And I mean, it's not like it's 1000% won, but I mean, it does cost black a lot to make this move. The first thing, as I said to you guys before, we have is bishop to c3. And you guys can kind of see, I mean, this is kind of a lot of pressure on this knight. The problem is this knight really can't move simply because this bishop is just hanging in the corner. So, I mean, black has kind of put themselves in a little bit of a pickle. So we do see pawn taking d3, rook taking d3, rook taking d3, pawn taking d3. And then now we do have a knight going b to d7, but it's like a day late and a dollar short because we do see rook taking f6, bishop taking f6, bishop taking f6, knight taking f6, queen taking f6. And we just got a piece. You know, white has a clear 100% beast. They're not up +3, but I mean, they're at least 1.5 to 1 3/4 pawns worth of advantage ahead. And let me see, 3, 6. So we are, I mean, completely equal in every other way. Of course, you have kind of given up a little bit of exchange, and that's kind of the reason why you're not a full piece ahead. But I mean, this is basically white's game to lose, man. So we do see the move rook over to e8. And we have actually reached the point in the game. I thought this was an interesting, like, you know, guess the move portion. There is a really, really nice move. It is definitely by far the best move that white can actually play in this position. So if you want to pause the video and try to see what move that is, go ahead and do so. Okay, so it is not actually doing anything with this e3 pawn. I mean, I think some of you guys might be thinking, okay, king to d2 or king to f2, you know, or maybe queen back to d4. Queen to d4 is what we actually saw in the game. But there was actually a much better, more aggressive move that you can play. And like I was saying before, I think it's actually kind of tough to find, simply because when I took a first glance at this move, like I was kind of calculating it, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense because I just was like, man, it's going to get inconvenienced. But if you think just a little bit further, then you would be looking at what we need. And the move is actually knight to c4. And like I said, I think the reason why this might look kind of strange to some people is kind of like, okay, knight to c4 is protecting this pawn. But I mean, pawn takes b5 and like, isn't my knight just displaced? Well, the thing about it is displaced in such a way that you can just give up the pawn and you are completely like winning the position. If you did guess the move knight to c4, congratulations. You're not only thinking about, you know, like being attacked, you are also thinking about counterattacking, you know, and that is definitely something that you want to think about when you are attacked, is trying to think, is there a way that I could counterattack, you know, with some tempi, something like that, right? So if we do see pawn taking b5, you would be seeing knight to d6. And we actually really don't care about this pawn, because if black just so happens to want to try to do something like this, you would be seeing queen taking f7 with check, the king sliding over to h8, only move, queen going back to f6, king going here, and then now this bishop comes alive. And I mean, what are you doing here? You're having to give up another piece, and you're getting mated. It says mating in 11 moves. I mean, I mean, you guys can see that it's bad. I mean, this king is completely cut off on these diagonals. The knight is, you know, taking control of everything. So it's like, dude, if I'm black, I don't want to be here. So that was definitely something really nice to find. So like I said, if you found knight to c4, then I mean, you know, you definitely calculated a few moves deep and said, man, I don't even care about my e3 pawn, homie. So, but like I said, what we did see in the game was actually queen to d4. And queen to d4 actually makes a lot of sense, simply because you are protecting the pawn, but then you're also making it impossible for black to go queen to a7, and just like compounding the pressure on this pawn. And like I said, you are up just an entire piece in this position. So everything actually looks like pretty okay for white. We do see queen going down to a5 with check, king going to f2, and we're starting to kind of infiltrate, you know, for black. So we do see the move queen to d2, and I mean, the black queen is pretty much where you want it to be. I mean, it's attacking this pawn, it's kind of giving some pressure here. You know, at some point, maybe it can be attacking this knight. You will see that coming up. Queen takes g4, so now we have yet another piece, and it kind of seems like, I mean, like white is just completely 1000% winning this position, right? Like it's like, okay, so we do have, of course, the queen takes e3 with check. The king goes down to f1, and then queen takes d3. But the computer is pretty much saying that this is pretty much a draw. I don't know how being up 2 pieces can make this be a draw. I mean, you're down, let me see, what is that? You're down 2 pawns, kind of. But I mean, this is just the craziness of computers to literally be like, no, I mean, it's a draw. Like, everything is great. I think any human being that's on black side of the pieces are gonna be like, nah, man, I'm getting demolished. I don't feel like there's any human in the world that's gonna think that they're drawing this position if they're black, man. Miracles sometimes do occur. But we do see the move pawn takes c6, and then we do see pawn taking c6. We got bishop taking c6. And some of you guys might be wondering, okay, after the queen took d3, like, why am I not saving my knight, right? I mean, because I can move it to c4, right? And try to get it out of the mix and keep my pieces. Well, the problem is you actually can't do that because after the knight goes to c4, the queen is the only piece that's holding this knight. The problem is the queen is overloaded and you can deflect her with the move h5. Now there's no way for you to go anywhere that's protecting this knight and this knight at the same time. There is just no square you can do that on if you're black. So that is the danger, and this is of course something Wesley so saw. So going back, like I said, we did see pawn taking and then bishop taking. So that's why it seems like white doesn't care about their completely extra piece. We do see the move rook to e6. We got bishop taking a4, rook going to f6 with check, king sidestepping to e1. And then now we do see the queen taking a3. And something I will definitely be touching on, whenever this is an imbalanced position, like I said, anytime you have like different sets of pieces for each side, you have an imbalance. So now we have a rook and a queen versus a bishop, a knight, and a queen. And I mean, if you're not careful, this queen and rook can be very, very powerful against your pieces. So you do have to make sure anytime you have an imbalance of like, you know, an extra piece, but you're down in exchange, or you have like a couple pieces versus a queen, or, you know, like maybe a bishop and a knight versus a rook or something like that. Any of those types of imbalances, you have to make sure you focus on one thing: coordinating your pieces as much as possible, because you need all three of these pieces to be working together to protect each other and also to make sure that you're not losing any unnecessary material. So you will be seeing that coming up. The queen goes to d4, centralizes itself. The queen goes to f3. The king side steps to d2. We see rook over to e6. We do see bishop up to b5. So you see these movements I'm talking about. Bishop going to b5, making sure the knight is protected. Queen going to a3, and now we have bishop to c4, protecting that pawn. So you see that white is making all of the movements necessary to try to coordinate their pieces, keep their pieces close, and then also making sure they don't lose any material. Because, I mean, if they're losing any material as white, I mean, you're definitely giving the favor to black. So the queen goes to b4 with check. The queen goes to c3. Rook goes to d6 with check. We do see king over to c2. The queen goes up to b6. We see queen over to f3. So you can see everything is working together. At the moment, it looks like this bishop is kind of hanging. You're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? We do see rook over to f6. Queen goes to e4. So now we've protected the queen, the bishop. The queen goes to c7. We got knight up to f4. The rook goes over to c6, and then we do see king to d3. So you can see like what I'm talking about. I mean, white has a really, really great position right here. And I mean, they are holding down all of their pieces and making sure they're giving black nothing. So we do see queen to d8 with check. The king goes down to e2. We see rook over to d6. Queen goes to e3, further protecting, making those small movements. We do see queen going down to f6, knight going to d5, a perfectly safe square because this knight is held by this bishop. So you can see that Wesley So is doing a really good job of making sure that he's playing his minor pieces against this rook very well. The queen goes down to b2, and this is actually a point that it might kind of seem like any move kind of works. Like you're just trying to make sure you're still holding the pieces down, everything is good, but this actually just kind of like completely puts the game in a draw after queen goes to d2. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not really 100% sure why. The computer really likes king up to d3, and it basically says that the king is able to kind of wiggle out of all these little checks and things. If the queen goes to b1 with check, the king will go to c3, queen will go to a1 with check, the king goes to c2. And I mean, you know, because everything is held down, there really isn't nothing left for black to do. So this is the way that the computer wanted to play. And I mean, basically it's saying that you're completely 100% won. I mean, you're kind of weak on this back rank for the king. And I mean, you know, you're threatening all kinds of stuff, man. Like, but we did not see that. Like I said, we did see queen to d2. So we got queen to e5. So we're repeating positions a little bit. King goes to f2. We see the rook over to c6. We see the bishop back down to b3. So you see it's those subtle movements. You know, we got the queen, we got the bishop, everything is holding everything down. So black is having a really hard time at trying to penetrate into white's position and cause like some severe threats. The king does come down to g7. We see the move h4. We got the queen down to A1. We got the king over to G2. We got rook down to C1. Trying to, you know, do a little something, something. But there's so much open area around the king that you're just all the way good. The queen goes to F2. We got queen up to E5. We got king over to H2. We got the move H5. Knight goes to F4. We see rook up to C7. The bishop goes to D5. So you see what I'm saying? You know, we got the knight tethered by this pawn. The pawn is protected by the queen. We got the bishop protected by the knight. We do see the move rook to D7. So now something kind of has to give, because you don't want to give up. I mean, because black would gladly give up, you know, their rook to win both of these pieces. So we do see bishop going back to G2. We see queen down to D4, offering a trade. It's actually not very beneficial in these positions to give up give up your queen and trade the queen, because it's going to be really, really hard for you to hold these pawns. If we just pretty much have pawns on one side of the board, that's just like automatically pretty much a draw. So we do see the move queen to C2, avoiding the trade. Queen goes down to D2, offering a trade again. Queen goes to B3. Rook goes to A7. We got the move A4. We got the queen going up to D4. We got bishop up to C6. So you see what I mean? Like, you guys have seen from the beginning what I mean about all these moves. All of these moves are, you know, perfectly calculated to make sure, okay, this bishop move protects this, this queen protects this, the knight is tethered, everything is good. So, you know, white is, I mean, they're not really making a lot of progress, but they're making sure that they make safe moves and they're not just hanging pieces out the clear blue. So we do see queen down to D2 with check. The king goes up to H3. Rook goes over to E7. The bishop comes back down to G2. We do see the move rook over to A7. We got queen to B5. And now we have rook to A5. And this is a somewhat critical position, I guess I would say. The queen goes up to B7. And then we see the very, very smart move queen over to C2, double attacking this pawn. Now, what is the problem, you might ask, if you go for this pawn immediately? Well, after the queen goes to B7, if you do capture, this will be a complete blunder because rook taking A4 allows knight goes to E6 with check. And then if the king does go down to F6, which is the best possible move, the knight would be going down to G5, and now you have a double threat. You are threatening to check here, which actually will be kind of lights out, but you are also threatening to go queen to C6 with check, and this would be picking up the rook. So you got to be kind of careful just automatically going for pawns. Sometimes they're poison. So we do see queen to C2, and now we have double attack the pawn, and we're going to be winning it probably. The knight goes to E6 with check. The king goes up to G8. We see queen to B8 with check. The king goes down to H7. We got knight to G5 with check. King goes to G7. We do see the move queen to F4. So we are putting a nice little threat on this pawn right here. The queen does go to C8 with check. We do see the king down to H2. We got queen to D7, making sure that we protect this F7 pawn. Because as I always tell you guys, it is weak. And we do see the really nice bishop to C6. We're like, bro, you know what? If you just take my bishop, I'm going to go ahead and mate you, bro. But I mean, black is like, I don't want to do that, man. Like, I'm trying to be the champion, right? So the queen goes over to E7. We see queen to D4 with check. We got the move F6. Knight goes down to E4. We see rook up to E5. Queen goes to C4. We do see queen going over to C7. We do see knight down to D2, a little maneuver, and rook to E3, knight down to F1. We got rook over to A3. We got queen over to E4. Rook goes to A2 with check. The king slides down to H1. We got rook to A1. We got king to G2. We got rook up to A2 with check. The king slides up to F3 now. You know, getting more centralized, getting more in the open, but everything is all good. The queen does come down to D6. The knight goes up to E3. So as I was telling you guys before, you see how hard it has been for Nodirbek to try to make any progress against Wesley So in this position with this imbalance. I mean, you kind of in the mind frame, it's like, man, I got a queen and a rook, man. It's like really strong, but it's like, man, if you coordinate your pieces, you know, even this amount of pieces, you know, let's say you have like two bishops and a knight against maybe like a queen or whatever. That in a lot of cases is actually holdable. Like, as long as you make sure you coordinate and don't allow black to do like really anything. I've had people that have outplayed me with when I've had a queen and they've just had minor pieces, and I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous, but that's how it is, man. So we do see the rook going to A3, pinning that knight to the king. We got bishop down to B5. We got queen down to C5. We got queen up to B7 with check. Why not put a check in there, homie? The king goes down to H6. We see queen down to E4. We got queen down to C1. We got bishop to D3. We got queen over to H1. Knight goes to G2. We see queen to F1 with check. The king goes to E3. We see queen down to G1 with check. The king sidesteps back over to F3. We see the queen going to D1, king going to E3, queen to G1 with check. The king going back to F3, and then we do see the move queen to F1 with check. And I believe, let me see. 1, 2. I feel like, so this is only a second time repetition, so it looks like they agreed to a draw in the position because they were just going to repeat again. And so that is the end of that game, but as you guys can see, it is drawn by, I believe, threatening 3 failed repetition. And I mean, this bishop is pinned to the king, so that is why this bishop is not just like casually taking his queen. So that is that. It was 81 move game, 82 move game. So I tried, you guys saw, I tried to go as fast as possible. I didn't want my video to be 20 minutes, but I will be going to try to see if I can get you know, one of the games, because the finals are still going on. Wesley So is not currently in it, but Nodirbek, Magnus Carlsen, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Hikaru Nakamura are still in the final. So I'm gonna see if I can grab one of those games. If you guys have a specific one of those games you want me to cover, put it down in the comments below. I will also poll it. But I appreciate you guys very much, and I'll see you guys next time.